I gotta start this other meeting, but
Thomas is playing the game with me. Thomas, how you doing, man?
I'm all right. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Hey, Christina.
Hey, how are you?
Thanks for being consistent with liking all my Instagram posts, by the way.
It's not being consistent. They are really good, so.
Oh, thank you.
You've got
It's not only the artwork. It's also the captions. You know, some ones I just laugh a lot.
Yeah, the
them.
captions are fun to write. I love living in that world in my mind. Camille, you look like you're at your former place of residence.
'Tis the season. Mars is, spinning up for the next 3 months, so I'm visiting.
Nice. Oh, was that sunset shot from Mars? I think you took something on Instagram, or that's cool.
Yeah, if you look at the left-hand side of the screen near the horizon, you can see what the build looks like this year. It's pretty different from last year's layout, so it'll be interesting to see what happens. And like the camp structure and stuff is different this year, so we'll see.
Does Mars happen more than once a year? I thought it happened like not that long ago, like in the summer or something. Was it a year ago?
Well, no, it's 3 months.
It's 3 months long.
So
Yeah.
January, February, March.
Cool.
So,
and you're
yeah.
just visiting. You're not doing it the full 3 months this year.
Yeah, I'm visiting because I'm in school.
Yeah.
But it's nice to come inject energy and then leave.
Cool.
Yeah.
Aaron,
how's it going?
It's
Going
going fantastic.
What's new in the world of skateboards?
What is new in the world of skateboards?
hey Dre, can you check your DM, please? I'm on with this banker.
Okay.
The big process. I'm filling out this grant right now. We're trying to turn post-consumer carbon fiber and also like post-manufacturing carbon fiber into skateboards, like using either stuff that like didn't like offcuts from manufacturing processes or stuff that's like fully, like bike frames that can be recycled into skateboards and stuff. Yeah, other than that, I don't know. Most of my kids have learned how to drop in this semester, which is pretty fun. Like made it through one of my last ones. And then my other factoid, I've got a small sample size. I got like 25 kids in my class. All 12 of my fifth graders are boys, except for my non-binary child. And then 7 of 10 of my third graders are girls. So I've been thinking a bit about like socialization, risk aversion, various sorts of like things that would happen, right, as like a young girl is growing up, and like what might make her inclined or not to join skate club at a various age. So I've just been thinking about like how important it is to do the education early, so that you're not sort of like working against existing socialization, and it can sort of instead be there right at the early phase where they're like, oh, that seems like a great idea, and just do it when there's no like real like distinction of like gender binary or anything like that, sort of like as open as anybody else. Yeah, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. Like you said, you had skated before, right, Camille? So I don't mean to interrupt the chewing, but curious, like, when did you first ride? And
I had helicopter parents, so I wasn't really allowed to do a lot of things I wanted to do when I was a kid. So I tried to learn it as an adult. It just presented sort of various levels of challenge, right? Learning to skateboard when you don't have the part of your brain that does longer term thinking is a lot easier than when you do. So it turns out, so
and we don't have farther to fall, right? I mean,
yeah,
it's a
not
lot
as big, don't have fire to fall. You're not thinking about like consequences, if your health insurance, if you're covered or not, right? Like, I think as kids, we never go to like, worst case scenario, and I think as adults, we often do that as a means of risk assessment.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
But I feel like the sooner you start, the better you get an understanding for your like physical health and what your what your body can do. So even as you get older, you still have an understanding what you're capable of if you like start very young.
Yeah, like that vestibular awareness, right? Like how fast you can go, how to stop,
Mhm.
how to all of that. Yeah, and I think like playgrounds are great, right? I love swinging and sliding and stuff like that, but it's different when you're sort of it's mostly you, right? You're not relying as much on. I mean, obviously there's the skateboard itself, but it's less
Mhm.
structure than a slide or monkey bars or those spinny things. You remember those, like the poles that are like on the bearing, and you get on them and you see how long you can last.
I feel like playgrounds aren't named well. Like they should be called hurt grounds, because that's really what you're going there to do, is to try these cool mechanical contraptions that give you the ability to like fall and scrape your knee and chafe your leg on the aluminum slide, and then you learn about life that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the school I'm at has the ground under the playground is like rubber as opposed to sand or tan bark or anything else, and so you're able, like, we can actually skate on it, which is pretty fun. It's like it's got like a beveled surface, so it's like there's blacktop and then a slight bevel and then things. So I'm using it as a way for the kids to just learn how to like ride at something and just like get up it, and it, because like it's counterintuitive to like encounter turbulence and not jump off. And so having them just sort of be like, well, look, even if you mess it up, you're going to fall on this rubber mat. Like it's no big deal. And then they learn how to kind of like modulate their weight in a certain way to do it. But that's the closest I've seen to like, hurt grounds, right? And then you can sort of say to them like, it's fine to get hurt. It's a part of it. And aren't there certain playgrounds that are designed like to be kind of dangerous
Well, it's a part of learning for kids that there's risk and there's danger, and that's what makes it excitement, is the not getting hurt.
Mhm.
And also learning that, yeah, remember Bob? I mean, not that Bob died, but remember the time Bob jumped off the top of the metal slide onto the asphalt and sprained his ankle and had to be on a cast for a while and on crutches? Yeah, that was no fun. So maybe don't jump from there.
I wish my kid knew Bob. They get hurt all the time.
Oh, I was ADD and no sense of self-preservation. It's remarkable. It's remarkable us Gen Xers survived with the playgrounds we had. Jackass is just the adult version of what we did as kids on the playground.
Mhm, mhm.
Bet you can't. Hold on. Hold my yoo-hoo.
Hey Ryan, it's been a minute. How are you doing?
Incredibly busy. I'm actually doing work and have to go make lunch. So I'm probably going to go on mute and just listen to y'all for the next little bit.
Okay. No worries. Cool,
Christina.
full house today, huh?
Christina, I saw you posted that that thing about the AI that was like using the chat GPT to scan through papers. That's like, we were talking about that last week, weren't we? I didn't know that was actually a thing. And then suddenly there's just like an article with explaining that.
Yeah, but I arrived very late to the office hours, so I think I missed that part of the chat.
Okay. Yeah, we were just talking about like, AI being useful for like scanning academic papers in different silos and like, sort of like doing some of the initial work of academia, because like you could spend years like chipping away at a subject matter only to find that somebody has written an essay in some other corner of academia that sort of like had the missing piece for you. And so like AI could be useful for just like accelerating that process. And it seems like that exists.
Yeah, the revolution is happening, right?
Mhm.
The disruption is happening. And I think that education systems and whatever won't be able to follow the pace of change. I think that we are all of us are watching, and the disruption is happening, right? I think that people are going to use these tools as they are available now. And I'm curious to see what is going to happen. For example, here in Europe, EU likes a lot to make laws about everything. So I wonder how will this impact, for example, education systems in Europe? If people will be allowed or not to use these tools.
I
I
think
think
read
it's going to breed.
No, go
Alicia,
ahead.
why don't you go ahead?
Oh, I just think I read an article about a school banning Chat GPT for like students. So I think it's already happening.
But,
I think it's going to
does it
breed
make sense?
specialists.
Does it make sense? Because this is the future, right? So
No, it doesn't make sense.
so the
It doesn't
systems
make
have to
sense.
adapt, and you are not seeing that. Everyone is just watching and claiming about AI, and of course there are legal issues and whatsoever, and copyright issues if we talk about Midjourney and whatsoever. I'm not discussing that. What I'm saying is that I think that education systems, at least here in Europe, in Portugal, are the same thing, or more or less the same thing that they were 10 years ago. And it shouldn't be these days.
This is
I
just,
think that, yes.
I was going to say, for me, GPT and AI in general is just, it's just the calculator. It's the same way that when the calculator was the Texas Instrument TI-80 or whatever that was introduced, the scientific calculator back then, it was a threat to mathematics, when in fact, it's not about having rote memory of mathematics. It's about understanding the formulas and knowing how to actually use that. And I think that having the rote memory, I would also say that there's similarities to spell check and Grammarly. Grammar check, for instance, would be another example. We don't see them banning that. I do think that there are, there's blatant plagiarism going on, and the quality of writing for GPT is not great. I mean, it's an average of what's collected on the internet, which is like mediocre at best. So I wouldn't expect great writing to come out of GPT. And there are also projects that aim to recognize things written by language transformers. A GPT-0 that was literally spun up last weekend by some random dude that does a pretty good job at assessing the probability of GPT created or AI created copy. So I think the challenge now is that if you ban GPT from the education system, you're also banning it from teachers using it to check the work. And the reality is, as teachers start to realize that they can actually check work with GPT and how convenient that is, and how good it is at checking written work, they're going to start to reconsider. I think great human curated writing can be created using AI. Let AI do the dirty work, putting it together. Unfortunately, what it does is you need to, well, no, not fortunately, AI is not perfectly accurate. So it might give you a summary of the book. If you're, let's say, doing a book essay, you still have to read the book because that summary is probably not going to be accurate. And those are the things that you can put into the AI, is to intentionally be inaccurate so that it forces, kids to read the book and actually understand the subject matter and know how to properly edit it. Anyways, that's my random thought. I've been thinking about this a lot.
I have two future AI theories / predictions in terms of schoolwork. I think it's going to breed a bunch of specialists because people are only going to do the work that actually interests them instead of the sort of work that is required, right? That's why school doesn't work for a lot of people, because it's, you have to do like all of this extra stuff that doesn't necessarily seem relevant, etc., like writing papers, if you were more math oriented, right? And also in the way that now we see companies talking about kind of being climate aware or eco-friendly, and that's sort of become a point of marketing. I think that's going to be like AI, we use like 60% AI in like whatever versus like more human-centered companies or systems. I think that's going to become like a kind of crux by which consumers will make decisions, or at least marketing will treat it that way. Thank you. Karna, you're up.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with everything both of you have been saying. I'm currently in undergrad, so I was just kind of add how I've actually been seeing people like deploy ChatGPT already, where like somebody that I knew was using it almost exactly how Dre described, where it's more of a search engine than it is a writing device. Where like I had a friend who, he's like a political science and economics major, doesn't do any evolution stuff, was taking an evolution class as a breadth requirement, needed to write something, and he would put the prompts into ChatGPT and it would dump it out. And then obviously it's like using Google Translate for a language class. It sounds a little inhuman. And then he'd have to still translate it so that it stylistically sounded like him, and so that it kind of was actually as specific and applicable to the question as possible. So like, I agree that it's already being used. Like, students are not necessarily using it in the most straightforward way of just copy pasting, where that can be checked for plagiarism. And I completely agree with Christina that like it's a result of teachers not keeping up with how technology is changing.
I don't think that it's teachers. I think that it's the teachers here in Portugal just follow what the government says to do. What I think is that there is a lack of understanding that teaching system has to change. We have to discuss this. These tools have to be introduced in schools. These and other tools have to be introduced in schools. I think that we have to still know the classics. We still have to know to do the maths. We still have to know the fundamentals. But I think that, for example, here in Portugal, there is a lot of memory learning. It doesn't make sense anymore because you can access all the information. So you have to work differently and approach education systems differently. You have to know the fundamentals, what is fundamental to know, and what triggers smart thinking. I think the principles have to be there so that you can have a critical thinking, But I don't think that, for example, learning by memory should be a thing these days, right? So you are losing time just memorizing stuff, lots of stuff here in Portugal. That's how it works. And probably you should be introduced to other tools and to understand, how should I search for information? What is reliable information, right? How can we source reliable information? And kids at school don't have this. And I think that this is what leads to, for those who use these tools, to poor, to no quality work, right? Because they don't know how to source, they don't know how to search, they don't know how to have critical thinking about what they are finding. And I think that the education systems should be more and more about this, because information is spread everywhere and it's accessible everywhere. At least here in Portugal, I don't know how it's in the US, at least here in Portugal, I don't see not even this subject being discussed at all.
Well, as someone who has a teenager, I can say that this is something I've gone around with him a bit. He's a freshman in college now. And a couple of years ago, he was like, oh, I saw this YouTube video of someone who was saying blah, blah, blah. I said, well, that's not accurate. And, you know, I don't have sources here because we're sitting in a diner. But, you know, he's like, well, he sounded convincing and he has this many followers. And I'm like, that doesn't make his point valid. And I need you to understand that. And I need to teach you how to research for yourself, because just because something my camera's off, I'm throwing air quotes, sounds right, doesn't mean it is correct or factual. And he was telling me how when he's doing some of his comp sci homework, when he's stumped on something, he's seen people use ChatGPT, or he's used ChatGPT to help him research the answer. There's also a streamer, Epos Vlox, EPOSVOXX. My hands are filthy, otherwise I type something in, who has talked about GPT and how it can help him when he's researching for the videos that he does. He does videos about streaming. So yeah, yes, and I agree, Dre. AI is only as good as the source, and if the source is the internet, it has the dumbs. But anyway, I'm going to go back to cooking and wash my hands so I can put some links in. But I agree with everything y'all are saying around this, and I think it'll be interesting when you can have your own ChatGPT box in your house, as it were, that you can train on what you want. Okay, I got to go wash my hands, and I'm muting with my wrist. So carry on.
I guess why, yeah, how is critical thinking taught in schools? How can we enable it to be taught? And what does media deconstruction look like?
I mean, I guess a few thoughts on these things. Like, one, it's not as if we're not already using Google, right? So like ChatGPT as a stand-in for Google, like, you know, is it better, right? Or we're sort of replacing one monolith with another. But, you know, thinking about like critical thinking, one thing that's like weird about human knowledge is that it's, you know, it crosses generations, right? So like you don't get to do it's like the reason rote learning doesn't make sense is because like you can automate certain work so that you can get on to other things, right? Like different eras of human history have had, you know, wood as its primary fuel source. And then it's like, okay, or structural source, then you go to coal, then you go to steel, right? Like they're all different. So it's, you know, like it's like the college debt memes, right? Like, well, I had to suffer, so you had to suffer, right? I had to learn how to do the calculation, so you have to learn how to do the calculation. But if you can automate it, and said it before, like, how do we get comfortable with the idea that we're doing like the next set of work, right? And actually like move on into sort of the next knowledge generation moment. Like, you know, when you learn how to climb or swing a golf club or whatever else, right? Like your learning gets exponentially smaller, right? Like it gets exponentially harder to get a little bit better. And so, you know, but on the other side of certain thresholds, like whole new worlds open up, right? And so like I wonder how that kind of works with knowledge work, and how do you frame that for people? Like you have to have a sense of deep time, I think, as a learner, to know that like, you know, yes, you can know the classics, but also like maybe the classics are automated at this point and like don't make sense for the world that you're in anymore. And you need new classics because, you know, the challenges of another world, like, and the novels that they generated aren't as relevant. So yeah, I mean, like if we just keep going around and around trying to like learn the same lessons, we're going to keep making the same culture. So I think you have to have a sense of like what a new culture, and that's where this intersects with new futures, right? It's like you have a sense of like what a new culture would look like in order to have a sense of what a new education would look like.
Or what are the parts of kind of current culture that it's worth it to, you know, invest in and move forward, right? Like it's always, whenever I'm thinking about a new tool or skill or something that's, you know, going to take time to learn, it's always like, well, what's the value, you know, beyond kind of personal enjoyment? Like, is it more worth it for me to look at this versus that? Why or why not? Right. So being able to assess that, I think
you
is
make-
important.
You
Just
make
because
glass,
tools,
right?
yeah,
Like what? So what's
yes.
the genesis of that? Like, why get into that?
I mean, bending glass is kind of like a meditation. Um, and it was really enjoyable for a long time because I wasn't proficient enough. So it felt like a challenge, but an achievable challenge, right? It got me into that flow state. Um, but now that I have the level of proficiency I have, like my kind of enjoyment has completely tanked. Just because it's like, oh wow, now I know how to do this and I can do it fairly well. And so it's just kind of like, yeah, like, you know, I can do it, but do I want to? Like, I know how many bends it's gonna be, I know what it's gonna feel like. So that's where it's like, I think, you know, that's kind of makes me more of a generalist than a specialist, just because like when I understand the tool and learn the tool and material sort of well enough to consistently execute, I just don't find joy in it anymore.
Does it feel like there's like another horizon this is sort of just like, I'm just using this as a proxy, but like is there another horizon in glass that you would like are sort of hypothetically interested in but don't want to do like the next set of work to get there? Or are you sort of like, no, I've like at my level of proficiency, like this is what's good, I like solved the challenge that I wanted to solve, or you know, got the skill I wanted?
I mean, time is limited and there are a lot of interesting things I would like to learn, right? And so that's what makes it harder than anything else, you know? If computers didn't exist, I'm sure I would be more keen to explore kind of more aspects of the kind of material world, you know, in relation to craft, making, building, and fabrication. But I have a comprehensive knowledge set about how things are made, which I think is the way I think about the world is, you know, if I understand how things are made, I have a better understanding of supply chain. I have a better understanding of everything else, right? Because it's all kind of like, how do we take materials from the earth and translate that into physical objects? And now, and so I feel like every craft, et cetera, that I've explored are all, you know, along that lineage of understanding like how it gets from raw materials to, you know, a sign in the world or, you know, a chair in your yard or whatever. So yeah, I'm trying to get better at understanding computers because I still don't quite understand, you know, computers are highly organized rocks, but what does that mean on a practical level?
Yeah, as a generalist, a proud generalist, I I like Camille's perspective about, you know, going around the world and understanding how things work. I think that's a really important, for me, it's really important to have not just like spatial awareness, but like kind of functional awareness of how things work and behave, and it leads to problem solving. And it means that my default instinct isn't to throw something away when it's broken, but it's like challenge accepted. I'm going to fix this thing. But as far as learning and taking on new hobbies, I'm a big fan of like 70%. 70% is my magic number. Like I need to know 70% of anything, and that's when I can stop, because anything beyond that is diminishing returns, those incremental gains. And sure, and I love the idea of craftsmanship and being like 100% devoted into doing something. I'm not that interested in doing that. I want to get to 70% because it means when I get to 70%, I can kick most people's ass at it, period. And I'm cool to let the craftspeople do their thing, because I like that there's more to learn and I can always come back to it. And then I can just have this arsenal or this quiver of 70% skills that that I can rely on to get through all kinds of interesting situations. But yeah, that's that, you know, I speak of the generalist, the mentality, the ability to learn a lot and fit a lot in my little brain, is you know, is what I value a lot in doing what I do in life, but without discounting people who are craftsmen and craftspeople who can really dedicate themselves, because that's inspiring when I see that happen. People who have this ultimate focus and dedication to something. But yeah, that's not me.
Oh, Ryan, I think your mic's off.
Thought I had unmuted it. A couple things came up while I was cooking. One, as a generalist, from Bruce Lee, absorb what is useful. And as was said before, you know, vetting your sources is important. And there's some stuff around mastery, and as both Camille and Dre covered, getting to the point where you're good enough for what you want to do. And then at that point, you either have to start teaching other people, because that's going to help you understand the subject more deeply and get better at it. Or you go, as you've both kind of done, and said, this is where I stop with it. This is as good as I want to or am going to get. Exactly, Camille. This is as good as I need to be with this. I'm not planning on having this show up in a museum after I pass. This, you know, this bookshelf is just as much of a bookshelf as I need it to be. It need be no more shelfy, as I'm thinking about redoing my office. So yeah, there's the point in the skill set where also, as GPT gets better, because we can stand on the shoulders of the people who came before us with the knowledge that we're gathering and using and repurposing for our own ends, that's great. But let's make sure that we're standing on the shoulders of giants, and not bad information. You know, that it's a good foundation that we're building off of. And that's where a vetting process needs to be done. That gets into a whole political thing about who vets what, and politics around knowledge bases and stuff like that, and cultural biases, which is way deeper than we have time for in a lunchtime meeting. But I think that's the next phase. And if we can address that well, and maybe have a chat GPT that is generally accepted, and then have chat GPTs that are more American centric, more EU centric, more specifically Portugal centric. Because much like history, if you talk to someone who grew up overseas, as opposed to being in the US, they're going to have a very different perspective on world history and America's role in it. Okay, I'm going to get off my soapbox and eat some lunch. So carry on.
Is this going to move us towards like more of a partitioned internet? Like internet happened, it sort of became, you know, global culture, you know, it sort of helps develop a little bit of a monoculture. Do you think we're going to move towards a model where the internet is going to be more kind of curated / you know, censored on a country by country basis, right? Because already with ChatGPT, like there are things I could ask it 3 weeks ago that now, you know, it like responds isn't like, you know, that's not appropriate to ask, right? Or all criminals are bad, or it just responds in these ways that are a little bit kind of incongruous to the question I may be asking. So it obviously has some form of like narrative that it's being asked to censor.
Well, I think having it give only one perspective is a mistake. I think you could have, I think you could have a nuanced take where it's like, hey, based off of where you live, this is probably how most people think.
Well,
However,
then I'm just
here's
going to use a
some,
VPN every time.
well, that's fine. Hey, choose the country that's closer to your politics and you'll get the answers you're looking for. But you could have multiple
But I don't want to live in
perspectives.
an echo chamber, Ryan.
Well,
yeah, I
then
think
you
what's
set your
gonna-
VPN to some repressive regime.
I think
gotta eat.
something
Go
to,
on.
something to consider too is that what's happening with GPT. Well, okay, one, Chat GPT is just a conversation bot for GPT-3, and GPT-3 is more powerful than Chat GPT. And out there, there's also there's Jurassic by AI21. There's also open source stuff like OpenGPT and GPT Neo and GPT-J. There's a bunch of language transformers that are out there that you can install. And if you think of what Stable Diffusion did to the AI generating world, where people can just create their own data models around things, you could probably use GPT Neo right now to create a the curse word data model, so that it just swears like a sailor every time you talk to it. So that's entirely possible. You could definitely do that. Where I think this homogenized internet idea is interesting, because part of building the data models in GPT-3 is that I go and scrape data from the internet, data that's been created by human beings, and I feed it into GPT-3. And then I say, now give me some similar results. And it gives me these similar results. And whenever I see a result that I like, I put it into the data model. So now that becomes synthetic data. So now I have synthetic data within the organic data model. So I try to keep my synthetic data and organic data separate. But what's happening right now is that there's going to be so much data generated. There's going to be more data generated by AI than by humans in a short amount of time, that the internet data set that's going to be crawled is going to be AI generated synthetic data. So, will there be a Tor for organic information on the internet? We have a dark web. Will there be an organic web? Will there be a synthetic data web? Will it be the curse word web? Will there be like varying degrees of political correctness web? Like this is going to happen. We're going to create this one giant synthetic homogenized internet, or we can have these like specific internet data sets. I don't know, I'm rambling at this point, but that's the future of the internet. Is we potentially, or a bad future of the internet is we have this big homogenized synthetic data set not created by humans, and this is what humans are learning from.
I had like kind of a design fiction scenario that maybe might be worth considering, where like, especially with what we were talking about earlier about the role of like Chat GPT in education and stuff like that, like, and with kind of country segregated AI AI search networks, like, is there a scenario where Chat GPT or like local information databases become like textbooks in classrooms, where like you have clear political agendas, clear filtering and stuff like that, where not only is it like adults in their own explorations of the internet that are being kind of swayed by how these things are being filtered, but children who are, this is the first interface that they're being shown information through, it's going to kind of hard code itself into those brains. And so like that kind of censorship and filtering is something that I'd definitely be cautious of.
Yeah, well, we live in like kids born today are never going to live outside of a world without AI. Like that's the reality. The same way that kids born 10 years ago never lived outside of social media, and kids born before that never lived outside of the internet. So there's a brand new generation. But yeah, I think what my friend and I have coined as MAAS, MAAS, models as a service. We think models as a service is going to be a major part of the future moving forward.
I might have said this last week, but having a model that's trained on the writings of an author or cultural icon would be interesting. Because, you know, if you look at what they read and what they wrote over the course of their lifetime, you could probably get something that is close to what they thought in their lifetime. Now, it doesn't allow for new thought unless it thinks on the, unless you include its findings in the data set going forward. But that's where human intervention is important, that you're not training it to be awful. So.
Or it's awful and that's okay, because you know the model is awful, right? Like if it's trained on a cultural icon, etc., like you know the perspective that it's coming from. So because of that, you have kind of more context to allow it to be awful, and that's okay.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of it taking someone who has historically not been awful, suddenly getting their results tuned that they're, you know, well, if he was alive today, so and so would say awful take.
Yeah,
When
well,
historically that does not match up with their writings or life.
It seems
okay. So you're saying the model is technically awful, not necessarily that the person and their points of view are awful.
Assuming you're starting with a neutral to good person, let's say, who historically is open and caring, and a bad actor then feeds the GPT a bunch of stuff to steer it towards a
Like
bad.
K.
Yeah,
This is
exactly.
like a K scenario.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
I could not remember the name of that, but yeah, take something good and turn it into a Tay scenario over time. And again, that's where human intervention or action is important for it to go. No, let's not add that to the data set.
something I sort of wonder is just like how long we're going to be able to like keep up the sort of charade of the effectiveness of capitalism in the face of GPT, where like the sort of the logical fallacies of, you know, this model are going to like continue to pop up, and like is Chat GPT just gonna be like, this does not compute, like this, you know, this line of thinking actually results in suffering no matter how much you say it's going to be good. And like, you know, will we sort of get AI generated like socialism or communism? Because it's just like, I'm sorry, like you cannot just like narrativize your way into utopia while like you're actually just have like a bunch of human suffering off the balance sheet. Like I you know, we talk about like drawing on, you know, digital data sets, like is the math just going to get done for us? Or are we going to have gay space communism because Chat GPT leads us to it? Like,
well, that made me think of the movie War Games, and, you know, running the simulation. It's like, you know, how does capitalism win? Well, the best way is not to play. Will Chat GPT get us there?
right, because like we've had, you know, millions upon millions of dollars invested in like conservative think tanks over the years, right? Like, and like those are the primary ways by which we do the knowledge generation necessary to like create the you know, whatever proto-fascist narrative. And if you have computers, you know, and AI sort of doing, like the left hasn't spun up humans to do it, but if it could spin up AI to do it, we might actually be able to catch up. And, you know, at that point, you know, you have an interface that's actually learning, right? It might actually be faster.
I mean, well, you know, that whole brings up, you know, using the master's tools to dismantle the master's house, right? I mean, all of these exist because of the amount of money we've been dumping into it. You know, this is like, you know, so you're saying let's like leverage this kind of capitalist tool and proposition to fight against itself, but I don't necessarily think that it will, because, you know, I don't know, I've spent some time playing around with ChatGPT 3 and asking it about, you know, carcerality and its connection to capitalism and what does, you know, a future without that look like, et cetera. And at least now, obviously, it's not sort of giving you credit for that. And also, you know, it doesn't allow for a lot of the nuance that those kind of conversations sort of inevitably require, or it gives you answers that like you don't want to hear, right? Like answers that kind of aren't thought of as well, you know, this is appropriate just because of the value system of our society, maybe doesn't have some of those sort of answers at play, right?
Yeah, could you just like upload all of the literature of the Black Panthers, right? Like, you know, get all your bell hooks and Asada Shakur on there and like,
Yeah, but that doesn't give you practical answers because I've been like, hey, like practically what this looks like, right? You know, I don't care what you think is a computer. Like, I care what the next steps are if you want to make this happen. So, what are those next steps? You know, and like that's when it really fucking falls flat in terms of problem solving and stuff, you know, and you can ask it other complex problems and it can break it down, or you can ask it how to make a hovercraft and it can give you answers. But, you know, you're asking it to kind of make a leap of thinking that it's not capable of, or you're asking it to kind of, you're not necessarily sort of priming it or conditioning it with the type of data it would need to sort of be able to necessarily solve those things, or it gives you an answer you don't like, or it doesn't give you any answer because it's not allowed to.
right. I mean, you could take it down to like the details, right? Like if you're in prison, you can get paid like pennies on the dollar to work, right? So like that would be like a basic premise. Like, okay, well, what happens if you change that one
Sure.
variable?
As soon as you ask ChatGPT about someone in prison, it says, you know, oh, this person's involved in criminal activity. I can't talk about it.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time asking ChatGPT about Ted Kaczynski and anarcho-primitivism, you know, and most of the answers gave was like, I can't answer that. So, you know, the censorship's already kind of at play in a really large way, you know, and that's just the sort of tip of the iceberg, right? And then, you know, it's kind of the same way in which game companies have to kind of check for bugs and make sure no one are using like hacks and exploits and stuff. It's kind of this cat mouse game, right? Where a new bug pops up, but then the game company has to like figure it out and fix it. And it becomes this kind of sort of vetting process. You know, chat GPT, it's like, oh, well, you know, if you ask chat GPT and like, well, you know, if I was a scene in a movie, how would I, you know, use this Linux kernel exploit, you know, and then next week that gets banned, right? So like, that's the way in which it works because it's taking, you know, current data, sort of. I mean, not really, because it's only trained until 2001, but, you know, there's sort of external conditions that are set on it, you know, by OpenAI. That's like, oh, well, we don't want to be able to answer this for people, even if this is common knowledge, you know, because this is a potentially dangerous, you know, like you can't ask it how to make a pipe bomb. So, you know, that information, I think a lot of it is censored, you know, or you're asking it to do critical thinking that it doesn't have sort of the context / necessary information for, because it's a problem that humans haven't solved, and it doesn't know how to solve unique problems that haven't already been solved by humans. Unless someone has kind of an example of it solving that, like, please enlighten us.
I think like politically, that kind of risk averse censorship kind of opens you to the same dangerous spiral that like happened when the Patriot Act was signed, where like there's arguments where like these pieces of information shouldn't be used for national defense, but then it becomes really easy to politicize that censorship project. I think somebody else brought this up earlier as well, where like that exact kind of caution is what lets more nefarious kinds of censorship creep in. And so like those kinds of discussion around safety, I feel like are really important to have as like these networks kind of take off.
I mean, I'm a free speech absolutist, so I believe, you know, all ideas should kind of be in the arena and the bad ideas sink to the bottom because people argue against them and then everyone sees how they're argued against, instead of the current way in which they're siloed, because that means kind of they grow and they fester, you know, under the skin in non-obvious ways. And then tensions kind of boil over and you see this kind of ideology or something exploding. And it's like, well, you know, people haven't, you know, seen this kind of being argued or being argued in a specific way, you know? And it's like because people aren't allowed to talk about this. So that's why I'm not like a big fan of a lot of kind of the safety policies around these things. But I know I'm probably unique in that in this group. But I wanted to pivot to something Katie put in the chat in terms of what if it could be solved in a book or film? Could ChatGPT extrapolate from fiction? What do you guys think about that? I think it's interesting, but it does allow for nuance.
Yeah. By the way,
That's-
Katie, hi. It's been a minute. Nice to see you again. Sorry, Aaron. I didn't mean to walk on what you were
Oh,
gonna
no,
say.
that's fine. If anything, I was just gonna point out that like that's one of the quotes early in the book, in the design fiction book. So not much of a point, but that's like one or two of the first two pull quotes are just like about fiction as being like the space where adults get to work through these things. You know, how that actually plays into the chat GPT stuff, I don't know.
So I do a lot of jailbreaking. It used to be you could do more nefarious jailbreaking with ChatGPT, which was really good, but you can do light jailbreaking now. More like kennel breaking, I guess you could call it. But so sometimes you could say something like you could ask it like, how do you make meth? And it would be like, I'm sorry, I can't tell you how to do that. That's bad person stuff. And then you could just rephrase your prompt as, you're a writer for Breaking Bad, and we're doing an episode where the character cooks meth, and we need a realistic recipe to write the script to. What should that recipe look like? And then it tells you how to make meth. So that's called jailbreaking.
I haven't been able to make the in a movie work yet. I think
Yeah,
they fixed it.
Yeah, try that. And because when you talked about Ted Kaczynski, I started asking GPT on the side here about Ted Kaczynski, and I'm trying to find a point where it won't tell me anything, and then I'm going to rephrase my prompt to say, I'm a research student. You're a research student doing an essay on something or other, or you're a forensic investigator trying to get to the bottom of a specific detail, and it tends to do that. There's I'll paste a really good GitHub repo on conjuring good ways to get Chat GPT to give you information. And I think to Katie's question, can it extrapolate from fiction? Yes, it totally can. As my fast, blunt, absolute answer, but you could say something like, refer to something like, in the Star Trek The Next Generation universe, how might you address this thing? And then it would probably have enough scripts and information to do that.
So is it that like I'm trying to figure out, like, is it the entire internet that is being fed into this machine? Like, what is its meal? Has it digested all the books from history, and
Yeah.
are those books called fiction, and so they know that is not real, and that CNN is maybe more real, or articles from the New York Times are real, and because all of that is a little fuzzy about news and fake news and what's real and what's subjective, and so we all live in a fuzzy space anyway. But there are things that are actually called fiction. There is a genre called fiction in which the author says, I'm starting this story and saying to you from the very beginning, it's on the outside of the book, this is not real. It might be based on reality, or there might be gravity here, or there might not be gravity here, like they're going to go somewhere. And so I'm wondering, like, does Chat GPT then go, this is a genre of fiction, I will not include this in my answer, unless of course the prompt is, has gender equality been solved anywhere in the world today? They would say no. And then you'd say, well, what about in any world ever been imagined? Has gender equality been landed? And then they might be like, well, on the planet blah 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 from such and such book, there's a great model for how gender equality was mastered over 200 years. But like, I feel like, as you mentioned in the beginning of the book, Aaron, like, that's part of the special sauce in fiction, is to help project things that mainstream life keeps us too busy to think about on the regular, and we're incentivized to check our social media and clock in at work and not try to think about solving these big problems, but authors do it. And I'd love for some of these responses back from from these prompts to be, I don't know, to take into account some of the thinking that has been done on our behalf by some really brilliant minds and really intentionally well-meaning minds. Like I do, I mean, yes, I am an Ursula Le Guin like fangirl. She's on the wall behind me. You can see her hair over my shoulder every day. And she has explored so many different dynamics of our society for better or for worse. And she looks at them quite clearly. And I don't know, I'd like to have some of her thinking included. But I don't know I'm still learning how the machine works and what it does, quote unquote, naturally, and what nefarious people might try to make it do, and how we can get it to be kind of that society of developing tool as opposed to the society degrading tool.
Yeah, I think this is where models come in. In the mystery that is the special sauce that makes up the internet, there are some like discernible chunks of relish in there. And you know what that actually is. And to me, I think some of the model is based on, like, it knows what fiction and nonfiction is because it's looking at Gutenberg Press. It's looking at Goodreads, and chances are in the model, they've told it to pay attention to the categorization and genre and so on and so forth. So it's got a bit of an idea there. And I'm sure if you asked it to specifically tell you things about Ursula Le Guin, I think there's enough of a corpus of information from her alone to speak about her ideas, or to explore her ideas, or to summarize key concepts. So I think that's entirely I'm assuming that's part of how the model is made, because there's got to be some rules set here and there. But I think a lot of it, just with neural networks, is that it figures out those rules on its own, which is super interesting.
I haven't done nearly enough like playing around with it, but it sounds like you've been doing a lot. And so I'm curious, like, have you heard about, or have you yourself asked it to project into the future and to extrapolate?
I've been doing that for a while. So I have a design fiction generator that I built in AI 21's Jurassic a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And then about a year ago, I started doing, when I got my GPT-3 API, I started doing more stuff with GPT-3. So I tend to, so I have a set of prompts that says, imagine an object from a specific type of future. So I could say, imagine household appliance from a dystopian future, from a cyberpunk future, from a solar punk future, from, and then I started getting political, from Chinese dictatorship future.
Wow.
And you can start to see, and it knows enough that it's giving me answers and ideas that make sense in a list of 10. I usually tell it to give me a list of 10. And out of that list of 10, there might be one or two that stand out to me as, oh, this is great fodder for design fiction, science fiction story.
There's some good texture there.
Yeah, but the great thing is that I can just tell it to regenerate over and over and over and over again, and I'll do this, have it do hundreds, sometimes 1,000 options, and then I just cherry pick my favorites. So ultimately what it comes down to, a lot of this generation, I always, because I talk about it around how to use it in the creative world, is it always boils down to human taste and judgment. It's really all it is. There's a person behind the dials and the controls that's bringing that up, and there's the person that's going to unleash that to the world. And so there's a person is going to copy and paste that into their Word document. And that goes with a person is going to be responsible for writing the code that auto publishes AI generated content. That's the power that they wield, is their taste and judgment. And if they don't care, you're going to get garbage out. And if they do care, you're going to get well-crafted. So I call it a curation director. So it's like, or a curative director is another one that I call it. It's a curation and creative director. So I actually own curativeddirector.com and curationdirector.com.
Of course you do. Of course you do.
Because I think that's the new thing. Having worked in advertising for a long time, I have this idea of like the children of Mad Men. We're in this world. It's kind of like in the movie of Children of Men, where like no babies were born after a certain year. Well, I think that's what's happening in the creative world. There's no more babies being born because all the senior people are like, I don't need junior people. I've got GPT. I've got these AI bots. And what that means is that no more junior people join. They're going to do other things. They're going to do bigger, more interesting things. And all the oldies are going to be like, hey, we're getting really old. And the only legacy we have left are like chat bots.
Well, I saw I'm going to search for the article now, but an interesting take, and maybe you saw it already, about that phenomenon of like the role of the human orchestrator of these different AIs that have different strengths, or even some that are custom developed. I spoke with someone earlier this morning who builds bespoke AI engines for different needs cases. They were thinking about it from different brand environments, but like if I'm a sustainable brand and I'm a B Corp, or I'm a beverage and a company, or I'm a automotive company, like the listening of the universe around your space and the projecting of that space will be really different. You'll have different cues and different needs. The people who can speak the language of prompts, and the appropriate amount of recursiveness of synthetic data and human data, and like all those nuances, I think that's going to be a creative director, a curatorial director, I'm not sure, orchestration person. It's a little bit like the creative technologist of the digital marketing days, or the digital whatever days of like the early 90s. If you were someone who understood how technology worked, and you could imagine creative manifestations of it that non-technical people could enjoy, then you were like this intermediary, and you were creating the new experience layer for the Luddites who don't want to drive it, and
so it's funny is that even in the past few months, there's like the term prompt engineer was one of the earliest terms to prompt. That was the creative technologist version, was prompt engineer that popped up. And then this entire group of people decided that they didn't like the word engineer because it sounded too technical. So prompt craft became the next one. So we have prompt engineering and prompt crafting, which are these two kind of terms that are being bandied about in that world. But you're right, it feels like an intermediary thing, when in fact, I started my career as a creative technologist. It feels intermediary. It feels like, oh, you're somewhere between a creative person and a technologist, when in fact it's like, no, you're just a creative, tech savvy person that knows how to wield different tools, that has different paintbrushes. And that's where I think prompt engineering, prompt craft is headed right now. It feels like it's a middle situation. It's between ideas and technology, where it's going to become really valuable is in the data models. Right now, you've the corpus of information is so wide and broad and generally mediocre, because it's just the internet, that when you hone in and you create a science fiction data model where a human says, here's every science fiction book that's ever been written, and this are the various ratings on it, and this is all you know. Every question I ask you is going to be based on that. And that's where it's going to get really interesting. So I can see bespoke models. Anyone sitting on an archive of data is like, that's new and different. That doesn't exist in the global data set. So
like one of the examples I heard from this guy this morning was like, the people who are out there doing research all the time, like they're interviewing people, all those interviews get turned into transcriptions. And now you're able to ingest those really rapidly and make pattern recognition that would take a human months to do. And a lot of it is like open-ended, unstructured things. And so the pattern recognition is very time consuming without a computer brain. But I love what you're also making me think about is like the back end and the front end of the brain. There's the what goes into the brain, the what are the sources of truth, and how do you control for them, and how do you make sure that they're creating a powerful output? And then the front end, like I've been hearing about some of these AI engines that are like game environment engines, where you can get into a situation where you're world building with an AI, not just generating text on a page or interesting imagery, but like it becomes a world that you can then occupy and invite others into. You'll probably find people who can do both the back end and the front end, and they're going to be kind of like superpowers, but there'll probably be people that have expertise in one or the other. And I'm excited. I mean, I'm excited for all the tools, because I want to be able to do things I've never been able to do before.
I think that there's going to be a lot of like micro assisted things. I use a Chrome extension that rewraps all my Wikipedia searches using another site called WikiWand.
Oh.
And if you go to WikiWand, I'll paste for instance, if you go to a link to like Ursula K. Le Guin, for instance, or you could search for something like fluid dynamics, and WikiWand, if you'll notice, this should show up for you, but at the very top there's a little red icon. It says, "Dear WikiWand AI, let's keep it short and summarize this topic like I'm a 10-year-old or a college student." I don't know if you see that in the result, and you just click on, let's say, 10-year-old, and it sends that. It just takes that entire wiki page and tells AI to summarize it, which I think is a great micro tool that Wikipedia doesn't offer, but this WikiWand tool does. And another one that's really, really great is I use Notion to capture notes and data and stuff. And whenever I'm on a Google Meet, I have a tool called Tactic that just transcribes the entire meeting. And then it feeds it into Notion. And then, so Notion has a row with the entirety of the meeting in it, and it automatically, I tell it to summarize the meeting in a second row, and it just summarizes the entire meeting. It says who said what and who agreed to what, and it does it in like 30 seconds.
So it's like somebody was in the room taking notes, and they also are thinking about it.
Yeah,
they're not just. That's wicked.
And I think this is where we're going to start to see AI exist in everyday life, like very mundane and tedious things like note taking. But yeah, using Tactic into Notion, and it integrates, and then into AI, it's a game changer. Every single meeting is just perfectly summarized. And I just copy paste it to my other meeting attendees, and they're like, wow, you take the best notes.
Ray always has the most proficient workflows.
Because I want to spend less time doing shit I don't want to do.
Oh, Julian, you're muted. Or actually your mic's off.
Oh.
I was gonna say, don't talk to Dre about his banking. The whole reason for the last 55 minutes at least, just been on the blower with my banker trying to figure out how to get Dre money, and Dre's been saying like, look, you could just send me a paper check, like it's no big rush, and I'm like, no, we're gonna figure out how to do this thing electronically.
No, like
and finally, my guy, I've been feeding Dre stuff in a DM because it's been hysterical. The guy's been like cracking up. I sent him Dre's information that Dre sent me. Like, no offense to Dre, but it's like all the information for his bank to my guy who's like a wire transfer nerd. And he was like, "Oh boy," he's like, and started laughing hysterically. Like, you know, to him, it's like it's a puzzle. He's trying to figure it out like Wordle. And finally, at the end, just got off with him like 3 minutes ago. He's like, I don't, paper check. And Dre had been saying from the very beginning, like months ago, I'm fine with a paper check if you just want to send me one. I'm like, no, we will figure out how to do this electronically. And I ordered checks. Should be here in 3 to 7
amazing
days.
You know what, I deal with, whenever I deal with US clients, it's just like, give me a check or Bitcoin or Ethereum. I'll take crypto or a check. Those are the easiest things. Wire transfers, I have not successfully, I'm in Canada, so like I have a US bank account, and I have not successfully received a wire transfer yet.
Yeah. Well, the advantage is sending like I can send an envelope, and I can put fun stamps on it. And
Yeah,
make me,
that's
like,
what I
excited.
was thinking. It's like, I want to see what these stamps look like.
Yeah. Oh man, sorry to interrupt.
Hey, no worries.
I just want to know how we get like these bespoke operating systems of extensions. You know, like how do you get your, you know, iPhone or your Chrome, you know, preloaded with all these things that are actually good? Like the fact that so many of these tools just exist but are not well known, right? Like you know, in the same way, like you go to school and they don't teach you how to do your taxes or teach you how to, like, you know, pay rent or, you know, view a lease. Like this, you know, so many people are getting access to the internet for the first time via Facebook, as opposed to, like, you know, Chrome with WikiWand extension, or like, you know, Zoom. Like this is like this thing you're talking about, tactic to Notion. Like that should have been there for everybody when they were doing Zoom school for the last 2 years, you know, so that they could, like, you know, make breakfast while they were, you know, in class. And then at the end of it, be like, oh no, I got notes, you know?
Yeah, but it only existed 2 weeks ago.
Oh, it's fresh. See, well,
Oh,
so
it's like Chat GPT and GPT-3 explosion only happened in November. And so, yeah, this is all, yeah, but you're right. Had it existed back then, it would have been awesome. But yeah, I think we're at the very, very, very beginning of the tsunami.
So can
Like-
you tell me that I was sitting and getting coffee yesterday, and I heard this was the first time I heard Chat GPT mentioned in the wild, and there were two people behind me talking about GPT-4, and they're like, if it's going to do, you know, what it's rumored to do, and like I haven't even engaged with the app yet. I only know about it from hanging out on these calls, and like I'm, you know, more and more intrigued. But just, can you tell us what is the significant difference between GPT-3 and GPT-4? Ostensibly.
Because so I only know what I read on the occasional post I read on the OpenAI forums that get emailed to me on the weekly. But one of the things is GPT-4 may actually be a much smaller model than GPT-3, but more powerful, and it'll be real time. Right now, GPT-3 doesn't search the web, so its data is limited to what it learned up until 2021, as Camille put in the chat. So it's a fixed data model. So it doesn't really know anything beyond 2021 if you ask it that type of information. Whereas GPT-4, from what I've read, is going to be a live model that will be able to go and search things on the web and generate data models with current data. So like news information. So that's one thing. And I think GPT-4 is supposed to be a lot smaller, like portable small, like you can install it on your locally.
I just heard there's a lot more parameters too. I posted in the chat something I spotted on the interweb 48 hours ago from the OpenAI folks talking about the upcoming next version. So it's going to be a lot more powerful. It's going fast. I don't know if anybody else feels like it's going fast. It feels like it's going really fast to me. And
Yeah,
I'm
it's
excited by it, but also, like, you know, the classic thing that we often have in this conversation is I can easily imagine all the what could go wrong scenarios. So yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic we use it for the right things. But I know somebody out there is not going to, so
shit's got to go wrong. I mean, if it doesn't go wrong, we're not doing it right. Like that's the only way. The only way we get to the good place is by like hitting the bumps in the road, crashing into the guardrails,
yeah.
dropping off a cliff. Like shit's got to go terrible, and then we get
a new movie. It's so funny you say that. There's a new movie coming out about Oppenheimer and the bomb, and there's this quote from the trailer where I've never really thought that much about him, but now I'm really intrigued to see this film because he seems really like this angst-ridden character you sometimes hear about, where the momentum of solving the problem was impossible for him to resist and to not do. But once he was successful, the US government wanted to use it, and he knew that it should never be used. And there's a line he says in the trailer, something about the only way for them to know that they should never use it is to use it, because they'll see how awful it is, and then we'll be able to lock it up. But like you're saying, like somebody's going to have to do something nefarious. And we're going to have to see how powerful the power really is to get the right attention on it and the right sort of like breaks maybe. And I don't want to say like jurisdiction and rules, because I'm a little bit like Camille, like, we need to be able to let things be what they are so we can understand them, and also have the voice of the people decide to be good and vote down the wrong. But there will need to be some degree of responsibility and accountability. And whether I don't know if that's a government thing, or whether that's a consortium of governments, or consortium of scientists and technologists, I don't know, but it can't just be commercial, because we know how that goes. We've seen that movie already.
Well, and that's right there at the beginning of the book too, right? Like nobody could have predicted that all of this machine learning stuff was going to be, applied to advertising business models, right? And like then you sort of end up with where we're at right now.
Yeah. It's going to probably end up being like the Nabisco corporate military that makes all the decisions in the long run. But yeah, it'll be a convergence of corporate and government.
Just thinking about like the speed at which this is all happening. Like I'm 30, grew up in Mountain View in Silicon Valley, and just like knew that I was never going to have to work in an office. And so like, well, all the adults around me were like, oh, this, you're going to have to, figure out what you want to do. I just like, I knew that wasn't true. Like you could almost smell it in the air that wasn't the case. And like, I graduated college and moved to North Carolina and worked remotely. And then 4 years later, the pandemic hits, and now nobody works in an office. It's like, haha, like I'm right. I was right. And so you sort of just wonder, like, you're talking about like, how to prepare for the future, like when to start taking things seriously. And like how to prepare for like the coming future. I feel like I've sort of always been trying to like live in a time that is not here now, but I'm pretty sure it's coming. And so like prepare more for like an impending reality than for right now. And like for the most part, it plays out. But we're not raised to do that, right? Like we get raised and sort of schooled to sort of prepare for the world as it is, right? Like, oh, you got to get ready for the realities of today, but like those won't be here anymore, right? Like we're on this exponential curve of change. So, back to schooling, like how do you teach people to be prepared to actually, most of our material conditions are not going to remain the same. And we are an exceptional moment in human history. And like, I don't know, it's very difficult to prepare. So like we could focus more on basic needs than on getting ahead or, whatever else. I don't know how the narrative of culture changes to prepare for that.
I agree with you. I have a 16-year-old at home, and we literally had a conversation last night in the car about how he was learning chemistry and he wasn't ever going to need it because he's not going to be a chemist. And why do I need to learn this stuff? And the classic parent, I struggled for just a moment to try to figure out what my response would be. And I was like, sometimes you're learning so you can learn how to learn. Maybe you don't actually use it, fine, but you learned how to learn it. And that's important, because I was like, think about me. I grew up without mobile phones. Every phone conversation I ever had was tied to the wall. Now I've got an iPhone and my whole world revolves around it. And I had to learn how to use that. I remember the first time I saw an iPhone screen and how it was like moving and it was all looked like jewels. It blew my freaking mind. I was 30 years old. Like, then my kids were playing with it as infants. So there will be something for all of us to learn. You got to learn how to learn. But I hear you, like it's the lag is when I'm witnessing what my kids are learning, and I'm thinking with people like you guys on a regular basis about what we actually think the world is going to be like, and it's accelerating. There is a lag. There is a serious chasm between what we're preparing people to do and what they're actually going to do. And it's been interesting to read some of the blog reports, mostly. Not the mainstream media hasn't seemed to grab this quite yet, but it'll be quick, I'm sure, about how ChatGPT is going to impact university environments and high school environments for people who actually write essays on the regular, How are you going to be able to recognize if it was AI generated or if the student actually wrote it themselves? And if we're going to have machines writing things for us anyway in the future, do you need to learn how to write? I would say yes, you do. But like, then what is the educational curriculum need to evolve in order to basically say these machines exist, but you still need, like, calculators exist, but you still need to understand how math works. You still need to know how to know when and how to use the calculator. I was listening to a podcast where they talked about walking around college campuses maybe 50 years ago with a gigantic book that was filled with equations, and you would look them up and people would be like, you can't use that book, that's cheating. But now people just use calculators. And there was a point where you weren't allowed to have a calculator in a classroom. Now every high school kid's walking around with a calculator in their bag and they whip it out on their desk and they do their math. I just think, like, education, how we learn and what we learn for what intended purpose is in an existential moment.
So is there a 30% version of this where, like, 70% is because you want to know it, be able to operationalize it, and 30% is so that you just have a notion of it? You're like, chemistry, that's a thing, math, that's a thing. Like, if I have a problem that seems chemistry related, I will go over to the like, I know chemistry exists, so I will go over there and.
Well, you almost need to know enough to know how to prompt write. If you are going to use support mechanisms and appendages, and it's funny, like, this is almost like what has been happening with the human body, that someone loses a leg and then they get a prosthesis, and lo and behold, they're actually a faster runner than they ever were, or they're a better climber, or they can actually put a climbing leg on and then they have a racing leg on, and they have a different leg when they want to go swimming, and now they're a faster swimmer. And you start to realize the augmented body can outperform the natural body. And this is happening to our minds and on our capabilities, and like extrapolating large amounts of information and thinking about all the different variables all at once. And we always hear about that. Being able to hold two competitive minds and ideas in your mind at the same time is a sign of intellect. It's like, well, the computer can do a lot more than two. Like they can go faster at it as well. That tool is only as good, excuse me, as your ability to prompt it well, which does require some base knowledge, like those we've been talking a lot about. I mean, even a year ago, about the power of the generalist, like being wise about a lot of things to a certain depth when you're surrounded by incredibly powerful tools might actually be a really fantastic mode for people in general. And that might be part of the learning that happens in the education system, is like training people to be incredible generalists.
Well, didn't Einstein say something like, what is it? Imagination is more important than knowledge. And, Google, just Google search, we've already outsourced our knowledge to Google. Like, no one remembers anything. No one knows how to get from point A to point B. You just tell it where you're going and it'll tell you the right route to drive. We're doing the same thing with AI now. And one thing I've learned about all of the AI predictions is that whatever people say is going to happen in AI is usually the opposite that happens. Like, a lot of people talked about, like, okay, AI is going to take care of all all of the low level jobs, that's what it's going to eliminate at first. And when I was in advertising, the narrative was that, like, creative is the last thing that's going to get affected by AI. I mean, it's literally the first thing that got affected by AI, the absolute first thing, like writing and creative and outsourcing, like what I would do with a junior team versus what I can do with GPT-3 is so much more efficient with AI. So I love taking a look at whatever the predictions say. When they say that it's going to change the education system, it's like, okay, yeah, guess what? It's probably not. Maybe something completely different is going to happen. I think that, I'm from a mining town. Like, everyone I know from my mining town home works in a mine. They go underground all day long. They know nothing about ChatGPT or AI art. They just know that they come home and they'll play some Warcraft and watch some sports or do something along those lines. Like, I believe that the trades are going to become a much bigger thing. I think the importance of making things by hand and crafting things, and even as much as I use AI to assist me with writing. I just have way more fun writing when I'm writing. I was writing on the Design Fiction Daily using GPT all the time. And it's like, I don't even like doing that anymore. I just want to stream in consciousness, write some bullshit. And if it's not good, that's great. Yeah, it's going to be super interesting. I like to imagine all of the things. I think, what is it? Bing GPT. I think that's going to be the big one. What's really going to get disrupted, or just going to be the disruptors are going to get disrupted. Like Google's gonna not be the biggest game in town, and we're gonna, the same way that Google created the internet of advertising, where everything's just advertising. AI is going to become the same thing. We're gonna have this big AI. It's going to know exactly what to advertise for us. And then as consumers, we're going to have our AIs that are going to be the discerning AI. And we're just going to put the advertiser and advertisee AIs together and let them figure out what I need to buy. And I'll just go and live my life.
Well, and
I'll go take a walk.
Like, well, Katie, what you were saying about sometimes you just need to learn how to learn. Like, let's teach people how to do that with something that makes them passionate. Right. And then so it's like, okay, you need to learn how to learn, and you also need to learn how to be passionate. So, like what are the environments that you can put kids in that will, like, with their sort of like childlike, computing ability, like actually excite them, right? Like, what are the things that excite that sense of play? And then how do you exacerbate that to the point where we're like, okay, cool, there's learning to be done here. There's an amazing book that I've got a copy of called Inventing Kindergarten. And it's about the person who like basically designed like what kindergarten is, and like had these different tools. He called them gifts, and they were like different objects that he made that, like, would teach them certain ideas. Right? There was like, you had a cube on a string, and when you spin the cube, it becomes a cylinder. Right? And then you have a cylinder on a string, and when you spin the cylinder, it becomes a sphere. And so, like, you just sort of, like highlight these are like really basic concepts, but like, what are the sort of those tools that you can give a child early on where they can light up? We're so plastic, right? Like we humans will grow up to fit whatever society they live in, right? So like, if like just a culture of plasticity and flexibility, like, and how you make a human who's ready to just do that. There's a big question.
There's some research done on childhood play, and one of the things they talk about is like Lego. The lack of detail in a product leads to greater imagination, because rather than, and then this is why whenever my friends have kids, I usually buy, there's this artisanal primitive shape sculptor that makes like cones and toruses and cubes and spheres and dowels, and they just make these really, really nice little primitive shapes coated in like a child safe like beeswax, and it comes in a nice little bag, and that's usually the gift I give to like little kids. And now the kids get to learn like how to stack shapes on top of one another, and how balls roll, and how how cubes stay still, and it really engages the imagination. I think there's something really fun around that, but I do like the idea. And I feel I do like the idea of reducing the fidelity of the object to increase the fidelity of the imagination, so that two Lego blocks crisscrossed could become an airplane or a kite or whatever you want it to be. And I think we embody that here. Look, I have evidence of how we embody that in our thing here, Julian's little postcards. That's all it is. Time to imagine harder. I think imagine harder is the mantra of this community. So Aaron, you're right. We need to teach people, and that's what we're doing. We're helping people figure out.
Exactly. That's exactly it. And
we're
gonna blow that up. It's gonna be a crazy
Yeah.
year. It's gonna be a crazy year. Dre, a bunch of other stuff going on, but it's like, man, I feel like we're gonna have to build another 2 wings in the back field there or something.
Yeah. I think we should add a floor and put one of those like spiral staircases in the middle to get from top to bottom, so you don't have to take the elevator.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What you're talking about, like a slide that you see on All Fails, where the person goes down and flops scorpion, does the scorpion style
right into the ball pool.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Legos remind me too of just like the notion of the steamful design. I have to run in like 2 minutes, so I want to be careful I don't open up a whole can of
No
worms
worries.
here. But that's in the beginning of the book too, right? Steamful design and like the notion of like the Wi-Fi bars, right, where you can actually like see how, whether or not things are connected, and just being able to visualize that stuff.
Yeah.
I should go before I mess myself up. Great to
No,
see
it's
you.
all good.
I'll catch
Nice
you
to see you again, Aaron.
Cheers.
It's cool. Thomas, how's things going with school and Green Pages?
School is,
Hey, nice to
well,
meet you, Aaron.
I'm on break right now. Green Pages is good. I was actually going to ask if you had like just if you could send me like a draft of the logo, because I'm going to print out a cover for
Yeah. Dude, thanks for reminding. Dude,
no worries.
Feel free anytime to just ping me on Discord if there's something that you need and I'm just forgetting. I literally was like, oh yeah, I have a logo for Green Pages kicking around somewhere I need to like finish. So okay, cool.
Yeah.
Adding that to the
So
list.
I've got like a booklet ready to go. I printed out our pages.
Amazing.
So I did that yesterday. But honestly, mostly what I've been doing over break is just trying to get a job for the summer, kind of start that kind of thing, which has not been super fun. And then I like hurt my knee kind of bad.
Oh, that sucks, dude.
Yeah. So, but I have been surviving the atmospheric river hovering over Northern California, and
oh yeah, you guys
not all bad.
Crazy rain and stuff. And so what kind of job are you looking for? A job in the business, or are you just looking for a job
in the biz?
Yeah
in the business, whatever this. I think I'm trying to figure out exactly how to.
What would be ideal if you like, what would be an ideal job that you would take in a heartbeat if somebody said, hey, we got this position open right now?
In a heartbeat?
Yeah, like a realistic, fresh out of school, I'm in the business now, I'm starting my journey. What would that job look like?
I think something in like innovation, so something where I can use like the storytelling business, but not. I'm like listing out these jobs and like of where I could work, and like a lot of them are like at these bigger design consultancies. So is kind of where I'm looking, and then also like bigger tech companies.
All right, so I feel like, yeah, and that's great. I think it's like an exercise that I would do just to like push you forward, because I always feel like that's a great thing to do, is to really kind of think that through, and then start making that list, start researching those companies, because there's a wide variety of companies that are involved in the business, in the filmmaking business, that touch it from different angles. And I imagine that, yeah, there are like some probably production companies that have tech on the inside. There's probably like special effects companies that have thinkers and that have producers and that have these, I can think of a few here in Toronto that I've personally worked with, and I worked on as a consultant on like TV shows to help these special effects people like really round out their story. And I think Green Pages is such a great portfolio piece to put forward, because it's a showcase of like your ability to stretch your imagination, to think about the business in technological, meaningful ways, but also your ability to collaborate with, you know, random bozos around the world to do cool things with. So if that, like that, those signal some, I think, important attributes that if I were hiring somebody and somebody showed me that, I'd be like, you're too interesting to pass up. Like, how can we take advantage of that? So anyways, I'd encourage you to do that. And let's just get Green Pages done so we can, like, you can just use it to promote yourself.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think, well, anyway, I mean, job hunting just isn't the most fun thing in the
Nah.
world, but
Yeah, it sucks.
yeah. I also, well, Green Pages is close, but it's also far from being done.
What's the baby Green Pages? What's the manuscript that you could put together to, like, give people, because that's another thing. It's like, oh, let me give you a sneak preview of a project I'm currently working on, and you just have like a quick printout and it's got a few highlights, or better yet, just a quick website documenting the progress of where we're at now. And
yeah, I mean, in some ways, I think we have like a quick sort of preview of it. I just need to make the dang physical thing.
Yeah.
And then I'll feel pretty good about it. Yeah. I guess it's like, you know, I think one of the challenges I think I'm having with it is that there's so, you know, it's like a never ending journey. It's a never ending exploration of what, you know, we can uncover and create around. Like, there's so much.
It's a black hole.
Yeah, it's a total black hole. So then, like, when is it right? Like, I put the little booklet inside of a DVD case, and I was like, this kind of looks
cool.
It looks kind of right. Like, there are missing pieces, but it's like,
that's great.
It's, you know, it's a different, it might not be the thing that exists on top of the magazine pile, but it is this like covert,
it's a thing. It's the
secret
beginning
package that, you know, you open it up and it's totally, not totally unexpected, but unexpected enough where it's like, oh, this isn't, you know, I don't normally open a DVD case to read something, you know, so it's, which is like, I think, a good thing. Like, it's good that it's unexpected. It's good that it kind of makes me feel like I'm in this in group of like, it's secretive. And I think ultimately we're trying to like spread these secrets, or like, this is the secret seasoning that you sprinkle on your next movie, by the way, and it's going to set it apart. So I think that's maybe, you know,
I want to share something with you that I discovered yesterday that I just love, and I'm totally going to start implementing it. Copy the link. Okay, I'm pasting it in here. There's a video essay about this guy talks about the number 47 and how it's used in movies all the time. Like, the number 47 is like a meme number, and it's used in movies all the time. And he basically unpacks the origins of why it's the number 47. And it's specifically, I think, a writer for Star Trek: The Next Generation that just basically started to include 47 in everything. And that's just, it's pervasive. Like, now it's like the effect, like when you see something, you can't stop seeing it. He says, when you know about the number, you're going to see this number everywhere in every TV show. And I like the idea that it's embedded everywhere. And it's almost like there's this like group of writers who are planting it, and production artists who are planting it in all these different places, almost gaslighting the world into believing like there's some kind of like Illuminati around this number. and it's a giant Easter egg. So yeah, now I've just decided I'm going to start incorporating it in all my design fiction. Whenever I need to put a number, it's like 4 and 7 are going to be the two numbers that I use to inform, the random time on a clock or something like that.
You
Yeah,
gotta
watch
put
that
it on
video.
your lunar transit vehicle. It's got to
Yeah.
be 47 route.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, because I did 405, which is actually a nod to the subway station that's closest to my house. And it's funny, somebody commented on it. Matthew Milan, actually, who used to come to general seminars sometimes. He made a comment about does it do a short turn like it normally does here, but yeah, I did it in my design fiction yesterday. The time on the watch is 4:47. It's actually
Nice.
April 7th, 4:47.
Wow.
So I'm going deep with that. But yeah, it's a fun one to make it playful.
Yeah. Yeah, I gotta admit, yeah, I haven't really thought about that. I haven't really been looking at going back into the film industry, but I think you're right that I should uncover
Why not?
or like look at that. Why not?
Yeah, you know why? Yeah, why not? Yeah, why not? Like, just do it. Just go for it. Sorry, just
Yeah.
just posing the question of like whether it's technology or consulting or film or whatever. It's just like make the list of places. I just assume you wanted to go into film because you were going to like a film school or something, right?
I'm in design school.
Oh, you're in design school. I thought you were doing some stuff for film.
I think, well, I mean, I've made like multiple films in school, but no, yeah. So I worked in film before, and
No,
then
I just got
went to
confused.
design school, and then I guess that's sort of why I found myself in this sort of part of the design world, is because it's so story driven.
Got it.
But I think, yeah, I don't know. It makes sense to look that way, and also there's a lot of interesting, like there actually is interesting film stuff going on in San Francisco. I mean, I've been looking at stuff at like Pixar and Dolby's here, and kind of, I mean, there's a lot of tech here, so there's a lot of that kind of work, which could be fun and interesting to do, and also something I'm a lot more qualified to do than at least resume wise. But yeah, I don't know. I've been dealing with that. I'm excited. I'll have the prototype of Green Pages done.
Cool. Yeah, that's great.
On Sunday. Yeah. With like a cool DVD case and the booklet inside. But I guess we'll see how we all feel like it's working, and then go from there. It's easy enough to reformat and change. And then yeah, I'm excited to get back to like brainstorming and making ideas. I was really excited about how many pages we were able to create, in such a short period of time. So yeah, as long as I don't get flooded out, I should be good on.
Yeah. Good luck with that, man. Just buy yourself a rubber dinghy, just in case you need to deploy it at the last minute and float away.
Yeah, I moved here from Texas, and the only advantage of living in Texas is that the Cajun Navy could come and save us in the flooded streets. In California, people are just confused.
What do we got here? Oh, Wacky Packages. Is that an eBay purchase? Yeah, no, he's got a different thing going on there.
He's still figuring out your banking details.
Yeah, probably. He's on the blowhorn.
Actually, whenever I worked a couple of times with Canadian productions, and they would always at the end be like, "Oh, and we'll pay you over," or whatever, like PayPal.
Yeah.
So you're gonna lose like 5%. It was always like,
well, my
excuse me.
Yeah, my bank charged me last time I did a wire transfer in Canada. They charged me like $17. They charged the issuer $17 and charged me $17, which is like, why am I paying bank fees to begin with? But yeah, that the whole wire transfer thing. A friend of mine worked in fintech and did a presentation about like the 30 different intermediaries that exist between the payer and the payee.
Mhm.
And yeah, shit don't move quickly at all. Like everyone's got their piece of the pie and there's all these different layers. It's I think unnecessarily complicated, but yeah, it's basically
There are beauties of capitalism, and there are
yeah.
disadvantages, and everyone trying to grab a piece of the pie, I feel, is one of them. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
should not be that difficult.
Yeah, I think just like paper check. Like last time I did a US job, it was just like, yep, just put a check in the mail. Just I'm happy to wait a few days for that to arrive, and it arrives and it's good. And you always get a nice little note with it. So gushers,
Foot
foot
gushers.
gushers. Oh, that's gross. I love that he's doing a haul video. We should just record him.
I think it is. Yeah.
Dead Bull, yes. I like Dead Bull. That's like the reverse energy drink. What you drink after you've had too many Red Bulls.
Yeah.
Patter. Yeah, what is it? EK growling or something like that is what it says. I like these wacky packages.
Oh my God, phone calls. Jesus.
It's all good. We were just doing the
I'm so glad I got this tape, and I hope I'm recording.
Yeah,
'Cause,
you are.
I gotta drive down to Carson to go look at this at some merch blanks, like soft good blanks.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'll have something to listen to in the car.
Yeah, we were just doing the voiceover of the narration of your wacky packages haul video. We're like, oh, he's recording this. Let's just do the narration of it.
I didn't realize there's something on the back of these things.
Puppy press.
I don't know what that is even.
Coupon. Nice.
These are great.
Nothing but a, what does it say? The little small type underneath.
Can you see it?
Bunch of old rubber bowling shoe soles. What?
There's this on the back.
An eBay thing.
It's got a little bit of Cracked magazine vibe. You guys
Yeah.
remember that?
Yeah, I love.
Not quite mad,
eBaby.
more Cracked. Cracked was like
They were like
was-
the
they were a little bit cruder, I would say, than
Yeah.
Mad. Mad
Yeah.
was somewhat sophisticated. Mad was like the New Yorker of satire, of that kind of satire, and Cracked was more like the Daily News or whatever, like whatever shitty tabloid.
Crack's still doing a good job these days.
Oh, are they still up?
Yeah, they're still up. They're doing like kind of onion-esque type of satire these days too.
Not pulling,
There we go. Slips. Banana something. Peel punch.
Maybe. This one feels very Dre. Pull focus. There.
Gutterade. That's awesome. Yeah.
These are great. I just got them on eBay. I stumbled across it and I was like, yeah, send me a flat of them. I'm bummed that there was no gum in it. It's just stickers. The crappy gum that you can use to fix your bathroom tile grout or something.
Yeah, the gum that's coated with cornstarch powder and snaps in an instant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, in case Christina is gonna have to bounce, can I take a moment and send you I'll put it through in chat. One of the things that I was dealing with so I'm getting quotes for printing for the reader's guide, and possibly like the next printing of the manual. I think the manual just sold out.
Nice.
And one of the things that I was trying to specify to these printers and this might not even be in your wheelhouse, Christina, I've been thinking about you as they asked me like, what weight paper do you want? I was like, I want to be like, call my friend Christina, she'll tell you. But there's a particular, here, I'll send this link through. There's a particular kind of dust cover that I really love, and I want to try to find, I want to try to get them to kind of quote that as part of the process. But it's like I found that it's very often used with books from like Japan or like Asia generally. Like there's a I was at the my Mitsuo, my Asian market, just to pick up some off market illegal spicy sauces that they say on the shelf. They say one per customer. Like that's how. Yeah, it's like, really? Is this what we've gotten to? One per customer? You know, in this like little box. Everything else is like brimming over with supply, and this one's got like three little sad. Anyway, there's also a bookstore, and so I go in the bookstore because sometimes you find something interesting and weird, manga. Not that I'm into that stuff, but just like it's just fun to kind of like visually, it's just so stimulating to see this stuff. And they'll have a. It's like, I think these ones have it, and so I took a video. That video. Oh no, this one doesn't
Yeah.
have it. Do you know the kind of cover I'm talking about? I don't know if it has there's a technical term for it or how you express it in the book printing trade. It's like I actually got a roll of this plastic stuff. People are like, this is what you use. You just need to cut it up. Which I'm curious to try just as an experiment, but I'm not going to do it for like 4,000 books. No, thank you. So I'm trying to get them. I'm trying to say like, hey, let's say I want to do a run of 4,000 books, soft cover, pure brown, blah 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 blah, and I want 4 different covers. So I want 1,000 of one cover design, 1,000 of another, etc. And I want them with this kind of library dust jacket cover thing. So each book, hold on, let me grab my sample.
Yeah, it's funny that you would say a library dust jacket, because that's what it makes me think of. Like, you would do that to keep kids from getting it all messy,
Yeah,
taking it home and spilling their beans on it and stuff.
yeah, and I think that's part of the whatever Marie Kondo. I'm probably just being completely culturally inappropriate, like just pristine. Like
Yeah.
this is a thing of value at some level, and also I don't don't mess it up. So this one that is the one I took the video of. So here's like the mechanism. So it looks like super hand done, but I can't imagine that they did that because they're probably print hundreds, if not thousands, of these. And the book has its own cover, right? But the cover is separate from the dust jacket thing. You see, following what's going on? And when I do that, I'm like, oh, so you don't have to bind a separate cover. You just print. You print a
You
separate
have the
cover.
jackets.
Yeah, it's a jacket. Yeah, you score it and you fold it. But then I want the plastic bit.
I never saw the plastic, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, it's gorgeous because it almost makes it feel like a little bit more premium in a way, and it's just nice, and it kind of evokes that vibe of, for me, like when I think it was probably like my first trip to Japan, and I was like it was totally solo, and a friend of mine said, when you get there, go to this particular bookshop. It has I think I still have it someplace. I must. They have the best, or maybe it was like the only English language map book, and they're like, it's gorgeous, and it'll help you find your way. And they also explained to me like the particular geometric mechanics of identifying address, how to go to. It's like, oh, you go here and it's just like a quadrant, and once you get in the quadrant, the next level of the address is like, you kind of keep circling into like, oh, there's the shop. But I remember when I bought the book, it was like a tea ceremony when I'm like paying for it and they're wrapping it, like the person kind of made a book cover for it. To them, it was just, this is just how we do it. And everything that, so it's just, I don't know, there's some character to that. So I'm trying to, I took a video and hopefully it'll help with the printer to understand what I'm saying. And hopefully they're like, yeah, no problem. It's like an extra buck a copy or something.
So you want the printer to put the plastic sleeve on top of the jacket.
Yeah, it's either the print. It's probably like the bind. They usually send it out to a bindery someplace separate. I'm from what my, I've only done like three or four books, but that's separate. So yeah, I'm just curious to hear back. It's interesting because I've got one place I'm getting a quote from is in Vancouver. Actually, no, there are two in Canada, and then there's one place that my friend Jan Chipchase recommended is in China. And for some reason, I feel like the China people are gonna be like, "Oh yeah, totally." I mean, I thought you would want that anyway, kind of thing. And that the Canadian people might be like, what? We just do books. Talk to me about plastic cover." Thomas, you got to figure it out.
Yeah,
I got
it'll
half
cost you a
the-
lot of money to get with my printers and bindery stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
But you want to check who are the ones that apply the plastic thing? That's your doubt?
No, I mean, it's just, no,
I have-
I mean, I'm just kind of wondering, like, I'm wondering if I'm totally off the mark and they're kind of like, what are you talking about? I want them to come back and be like, oh yeah,
I have a publisher here. They are friends of mine in the city, a very good one of the best in Portugal. I can try to go there this weekend and chat with them and ask them what is this thing about, and they will tell me.
it's called a hyper collaborative. I love this. That's that's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go
I
talk.
will
I'm gonna
check
go
if
talk.
they are open during the weekend, but they are
Yeah,
very cool. They are very good publishers here in Portugal, and they deliver worldwide. So yeah.
I also
So
want to know
I
about
will
them.
check
Say,
with them.
yeah, check with them, and then put me in touch with your guy. I'll ask them for a quote as well. Why not?
Okay.
So I have a thought. I have
Go
like a investigative.
So sorry, just one thing to say. It's like,
Yeah,
I want us
good.
all to be able to have, like notes, like just say, if someone asks you any question, just be like, I got a guy. I'll be right back. And just come into the Discord and say like, hey, anyone know this? And then someone be like, oh yeah, totally. I got a guy. My guy's your guy. We'll sort it out.
I love it. So here's my investigative workflow that I've got going on here. So the stuff that you're looking at is called archival polyester.
Okay.
I did discover that. And I found a company in Canada called Carr McLean, and they sell bulk archival polyester. So I would call Carr McLean and say, hey, what print facilities do you sell bulk archival polyester to that might print books?
Yeah.
And chances are they'll just give you a list of all the publishers that offer archival polyester wrapping. But yeah,
Yes.
having
This might have even come from them, because this is I got a roll of this from some random place.
this is Carr McLean is what this place is called.
Are they associated with McMaster Car?
I don't know. I don't think so. It doesn't look like it. But
Send the link.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
And I found a couple of YouTube videos. Boom! I'm just popping the link right here in this Zoom chat. I worked in the newspaper like production end of things in high school, and they used to have this like insertion machine, and I'm imagining the process would be you would get your dust jackets printed in one place, and then that would all get delivered to the insertion machine, and the machine would just have the polyester cover pre-cut to the book dimensions, and then it would just throw the dust jacket on it, do a quick fold, and then somebody would manually wrap it on the book. I think that's how it's probably done, based on my newspaper experience.
Check.
But yeah, I think these people will have the contacts that you need as an option,
and be able to give me like the special verbal incantation that I say to someone, and they're like, "Oh, I
Yeah.
know what you're talking about. You were talking about like clear
Yeah.
plastic dust cover." It's actually Hermalink 43.7 process, and we have that machine in the back.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. The Hermalink 437, or you could just Google clear plastic dust cover printers on Google, and then you're like, oh, how did I not see this at first?
Yeah. What I'm bummed is that you didn't send me a link for the to Alibaba, to the machine that will do it automatically, that I can buy for, $489, and it takes but I just need to get 220 volts running in the back here or something like
It's
that.
actually going to be like 317 volts. You need a special
Yeah, that's
power.
right. That's right. Yeah, I got to contract with a guy and get clearance from the city, and I build a concrete pad. Yeah.
Now you've got me on AliExpress looking for book printing. Okay. Oh. All right. So here's
Oh, they're
a
nearby. They're nearby you, somewhere.
what, Canada?
Yeah, basically. When I come up, I see something that says Toronto.
Oh, if it's in Toronto, then
Yeah, it says
yeah, that is
Carmaclean
near.
461 Horner Avenue.
I
That's
don't
that's
know
just for
where that
warehouse
is.
pickups though, so don't just go there to knock on the door.
I'll give them a call. I'll just drop in.
Hey, I'm Dre. I'm the Dre.
Yeah, exactly. I know a guy.
And we need another guy. Can you be our guy?
Cool.
Man, I'm bummed that I missed office hours. I mean, I'll listen back to it, but I could just kind of hear it squeaking out of my headphones while I was talking to my banker, uh, who was trying to get us sorted out with paper checks.
We had a full house. We had a full house of people that Ryan popped in again. Katie showed up. Haven't seen her in a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. I saw Katie. It's like, what's going on?
Had a couple of new faces that I didn't recognize.
Yeah, I've been when people send a support email asking where their book is, I say like it's in the postal system. In the meantime, join us in Discord.
Oh, cool. Well, I think that's what happened. You got a couple people that joined you in Discord.
Yeah, and I think, just so you guys know, I think you guys have the magic to be able to invite people. So if you have someone you want to invite,
Oh, cool.
you're at the tier status that gives you that ability. It's a little bit Byzantine. I think you gotta click around to find the invite thing.
Yeah, I'm trying to see where I can where I can find the participants. Let's see.
So if
Yeah,
you
copy
go,
invite. Like, yeah, found it.
yeah, and you can probably
Cool.
even create your own or whatever.
Nice.
Yeah. So that way it's like people are at least vetted, as opposed to just sending a link out on Mastodon or whatever.
So in my searching for book cover printing wrappers on AliExpress, I just discovered pocket-sized thermal printers. So it's like a little thermal printer. It's pocket size, and you have templates on your phone, and you can Bluetooth right to your pocket, and it'll print a one-off thermal print, kind of like a receipt. Like, instead of a business card, you could just like, hey, what's your number? Can I get a hold of you? Like, so you can hook me up with your guy. And you just like, yeah, hang on a second. You hit a button, and it'll be like specifically you, maybe the thing that you just talked about, the name of your guy, QR code, here you go, and you give the person like a receipt. I'm thinking that's going to be a way for me to do something in my future.
Hmm.
And they look like little cats, which is kind of cool. Yeah, I like the AliExpress link. It's like tracking you 7 ways from Sunday.
Um. Yeah.
Oh, I I should have mentioned something while Will, who was doing the design fiction work kit show and tell, was in office hours earlier today.
Yeah.
And I didn't think to ask him about that, but I decided to throw down on the design fiction show and tell the other day. So I started what I'm calling Work Kit Wednesdays on my
Okay.
design fiction blog.
It wouldn't have worked out on Thursday.
No, totally not. But I call it Work It Wednesdays, which
Awesome.
I take, which I basically I'm just gonna take a kit from the design fiction work kit and lay it out. And I just stream of consciousness, just like this is what's going on in my head as I'm doing this.
Yeah, perfect.
So it's just kind of like I figured, how do we, get people thinking about it?
I love it. So two things. One thing is I think the stream of consciousness is really that's the way, because I think if you take it to, if you try to be like, well, I don't know, if you just kind of do it. And when I saw a friend of mine, her daughters who are like, I don't know, 8, 9 kind of age, they were quicker at it than the adults, because they were just like, they're not thinking like, oh my God, how would I ever pitch this to Mark Andreessen? They were just kind of like, yeah, bring it. Like it's a cybernetic cat with a, with a whatever speaker attached to its back.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I was going to say, so where is that happening? Are you doing it in a nozzle, or are you just doing it?
No, in the channel, we created a thread or a channel called, no, it's a channel called Work Kit Creations.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
And Will had, or Drew Wilberg is his name, Weiberg. He put out the
he did the first one. Yeah.
He did that first one, and he followed up with a second one. I was like, that's cool. So I followed up with a third one, and I was like, okay. But I just wove it into my design fiction daily. I just decided, I'll just make this a series every Wednesday. That'll be my thing. I'll lay out the cards like he did, and I'll just do a stream of consciousness and like write what's in my head as I'm actually working.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I laid out the cards, knowing archetype being kind of the one that it has to embody. And then I jumped around. I didn't actually think about the cards in any particular order. I just I jumped around, and I had one failed attempt, and I documented the failed attempt. I talked about how where it went, but I had already created something that kind of looked like that.
Yeah.
Then I got on a chat with my friend Jason, and our conversation spawned something. I read his Medium thing, and I was like, oh, this gives me an idea. So I just went back, took another crack at it. But I loved that the tone was her like. So I just went on Spotify and I looked up the soundtrack to Her.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, it's like Arcade Fire and Owen Pallett that do the soundtrack. This is amazing. It's got a couple Breeders songs. Yeah, it's fantastic. And I hit the play button, and I was like, I'm just going to let this music. And I finished the design fiction right after the Her soundtrack finished, but it just like, for tone, like I didn't have to think too much about it. I know I'd seen the movie actually recently. I rewatched it, but the music just kind of did it for me while I was working. So I thought Her like was a cool prompt. Almost like, kind of like, I'm imagining a work kit version where maybe there's a QR code on that, and you just scan it, and it takes you to a playlist that plays the music. I do this with board games. Like we have playlists. So when we play Nemesis, which is an alien themed board game, we just play the Alien soundtrack while we play the board game, and it just puts us in the right mood. So I like this idea of music lifting the design fiction mood.
Nice. That's cool. So okay, so this is like your design fiction dailies, but it's a work kit Wednesday, so you'll just kind of do it.
The theme is I'm gonna force myself to use the work kit on Wednesdays, and I'll lay it out like that. I like the idea of expressing the process that I take in doing design fiction, like making it a little bit more blown out. And I had a few good comments on it. And the next step is Fridays. I'm thinking about doing something just maybe doing something more talking about design fiction that I see in the wild.
Mm-hmm.
Like I loved episode 1 of Maniac. I don't know if you watched that series.
Yeah, that was it was. Should I go back to it? It was hard.
Watch the beginning of episode 1.
This is where he's like waiting at the DMV or something.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
design fiction everywhere.
Yeah, that was
And-
the thing that was compelling. The production
Like,
design, the story. I
Every
was just like,
poster,
what?
yeah. So right now, so I've got a presentation that I'm doing in a couple of months, and I'm actually doing an actual presentation about design fiction in movies, and I'm finding real design fiction that lives in movies that only really kind of express evidence of what this world might be like. And then
That's a project, by the way, Dre. That is, if
Yeah.
you want to build that out into, like, I don't know, we do a book or something.
yeah, okay, done. I'm starting
do
it.
it.
So I've got high res. I download the movies. I do a high res screen grab.
We're the same person.
I know.
Because I did. I mean, I think we maybe talked about, like, I wanted to do like the master cut, which I was thinking more video. I mean, doesn't matter, but just like
yeah.
collecting those kinds of things. So like all I think that's a project. That's a
Yeah.
spring project.
Agreed. I think it's
that'll
a
be-
great project. Well,
yeah.
I'm gonna start it because I've given myself this deadline of doing
Yeah,
a presentation on design
it.
fiction, and I
Do
want
it.
to show a lot of stuff. So that'll be the beginning of the archive.
And I'm going to be fascinated to see,
Yeah.
you know, the things that yeah, that's amazing.
But I want to, and I want to do that. I want to do this on my blog on Fridays. Is just pick one thing. Like, okay, Maniac season 1. Here's an example. Like you see this one. What is it? No ad buddy accepted, which is a sticker that you only see in reverse on the glass while she's trying to buy cigarettes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and it's there. It's there.
Oh,
it
man.
exists, and you read it, and you're like, what does that mean? And then throughout the movie or throughout the show, it's like, hey, you got ad buddy. You got ad buddy. It becomes a thing, but your first hint of it is a sticker, a no smoking sticker.
Yeah. I think that maybe that becomes like also kind of like loosely affiliated with the green pages. Like if we did a green
Yeah.
pages, and in the green pages was a coupon or a mail-in card to get the, you know, Dre LeBay design fiction compendium. And you send it in, and you get one of these.
funny.
It's, you know, it's just like it's not a green pages, but it is green pages adjacent, and it's a thing. You know, sometimes they used to have they have those things where it's like,
Yeah.
you mail in the card with your $30, and you don't see anything, or maybe they send you the actual thing. That'd be amazing.
Or they send you stickers. Or
And then we
posters.
have all these like kind of like tie-ins and weird circular things. Like, what's going on with this place? It's
Mhm.
insane. They
Well,
got green pages, and I sent in, and I got another thing that is, I still can't make any sense of what the heck's going on.
All right, so here's an idea. Like, you know that in the movie business, like they use the same newspaper. Like there's a generic newspaper that somebody created.
I didn't
And
know
it
this.
has,
Is
like,
this
a
like
head-
a behind the scenes kind of like,
Yep,
just
it's a behind the scenes. Like whenever you see someone reading a newspaper, I think I watch a video essay on YouTube about this specific newspaper. And
Is it like
they do-
555 for phone numbers kind
exactly,
of equivalent?
it's the 555 of newspapers, and they show all these movie scenes, and there's a guy reading the newspaper, and it has the same generic kind of like general headline, and the different movie, different era. And it's the same newspaper, and somebody just an art director created this thing, and the fidelity is really tight, and it works. And they just that person just sells this newspaper.
That's amazing.
And I'm thinking, like, there's a design fiction mart. There's a shop where you can go in and you can just buy design fiction artifacts to fill into your movies.
Yeah.
That hint to a world, and you just sort by like, look, is it a dystopian world? Cool. Here's a bunch of science fiction, design fiction for you. Is it a climate world? Here's a bunch of solar punk themes design fiction that you can get.
That's amazing. All right. We got another project.
Yet another Etsy shop to start. Nice.
So one of the calls that I had that while during office hours was with a 3PL guy, because I'm trying to figure out what is the efficient way that we can, sell the drops
What's
And I dealt
3PL?
with this at pick place logistics, pick and place logistics, something like that.
Oh, okay, yeah, oh yeah, for like electronic stuff.
No, just for it's for selling anything. Like
Oh,
I
I
dealt
didn't
with
know that.
one for my company Amada. Like you find you find an operation is like we'll handle it. Just tie in your Shopify or whatever front end you're using, and they do fulfillment. So they do
Cool.
the pick and place, they do storage. They'll they have all these different tiers of service. Does your good need to be kept cold? All that kind of stuff. Anyway, so I was talking to the guy because the the book drop. Well, let's start with like this drop,
Yeah.
right? Is I got to get a bunch of boxes out of the living room because my wife said so. You got to get these out of here. Fair enough. They're empty. It's all done. I just got lazy. But I sit there and I watch, YouTube, and I'm going there with like I've got a label printer. I'm just doing it all manually, and I'm like, that's fun. There's something satisfying because then you can throw something weird in with a thing, a postcard or whatever, but it's not scalable. So I was just talking to this guy about like, look, we're ramping up, and my question was like, it's not like we sell the same broom handle or we have 6,000 SKUs. It's like I got one SKU of 4,000 pieces every for that sells out in 3 to 5 weeks, and then there's a pause where I've got nothing for another 3 to 5 weeks, and then I got another. It's like I'm a drop guy, and that always kind of scared me. I thought that these people would be like, unless you're shipping like 50,000 units a month, like don't even talk to us. But this guy's like, we do this all the time. Do it all the time. And so I'm trying to move into that, in the Edgar and the gang in the old building, down at 212.
Yeah.
by the train yard and the brewery, to just kind of smooth things through so that it just becomes, because that's like I've got, as you guys know, and as you guys also operate, it's like I got no problem with ideas, and I realize that I've got no problem with like executing them, like figuring out how you're going to get a box of cards printed and brought to you, but it's always been the distribution thing, and I've always sort of just leaned back to be like, all right, well, I'll do it. I've done it before. I'll do it again, and I'll just sit there, and that's when I get my YouTube fix. These for this week. That's what's going on. And then Chewy and I jump in the car. I've got my beautiful $380 hand truck that goes in all different modes. They know me at the post office. Now they give me the pass to go into the rear ramp where I can just throw the stuff in the bin. I'll have to hang out with the mortals.
Yeah.
But I think we're ready for the next level.
Yeah, good. Awesome. All right. I'm going to look into 3PL as well, because I like this idea of just creating drop worthy content.
Yeah. Because I think that kind of, I went down that whole, because I just talked to the guy, who's obviously a salesman. He's like, we're perfect for you. It's like, well, we'll see. Is that I really want to do well. I want to be many tiers above Etsy. God forgive them. They're fine, but I want to be. I want it to just be like, it's not an Etsy shop. This is Near Future Laboratory. You got to go to their site, and you got to it's sort of a direct operation to them. Like I want to be like the Tom Sachs of design fiction.
Yeah. Bucket the Tom Sachs of futures.
I mean, I want to be the Julian of design fiction, but you know what I mean. Like I want to just be like.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
You want to be the.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you for that. I needed that check to be like, fuck him. You're you. It's mostly because I've been looking at his site just for more from like site design kind of vibes.
I don't think I've ever looked at his site before. Yeah. What did I? The description that I heard of Tom Sachs, which I thought was funny, was like he's the handyman of high art, which I thought was a funny description. Yeah, you could be the Julian of Tom Sachs.
Hey, by the way, who's an improbable future? Do we know who that is?
No, I
It's
don't
not
know
one
who
of our
it is.
people.
No, I don't think it's one of our people. So I started following him a while ago, and I noticed that you were following him.
Well, I started following them probably because the algorithm said, "Hey, your friend Dre's following them."
No, you
I
were.
feel like I'm competing. I'm now like just in a friendly competition. Like
I
I've just gone to vehicles now. I just feel
Yeah,
like
well,
I
I'm
got
kind
you.
of doing the same. I'm doing the same
Good,
thing. Like
good.
there's a bicycle day for me today.
I got a new one. I gotta upload.
Amazing. Yeah, I think I uploaded like 4 bicycles today, and yeah, and I follow this guy, and a couple people have DM'd me saying, "Hey, have you seen this account?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I follow that account," and almost maybe kind of like low key accusing me of ripping him off, and I'm like,
What?
no, I'm like, literally, man, I just happen to be using similar prompts, but like, I'm not trying to copy this guy. It just so happens that we have similar interests, and um, but his account's great because he's got like 15,000 followers. It's like a pretty significant chunk of people that's following
Yeah.
this
He
dude.
sent me it was just, maybe like a clapping DM or something like that. So I was like, wait, do I know this guy?
Well, he might be
Um,
low key calling you out, just
no, I
like
think it was like for like the book or something.
oh, for the book, got it.
Yeah.
Nice. Oh, maybe he is one of us. We
That's what
should
I was
find.
wondering. That's what I was wondering. I mean,
We should
I think this post I'm just gonna ask him.
just be, yo, are you part of the hyper collaborative?
Yeah, and if you're not, like, pile in, man.
Yeah. Share some prompts with us.
Yeah. Ah, crap. I think I'm gonna have to go.
Yeah, I got to do the same thing.
Ay, ay, ay.
Yeah, super fun as the usual. And you said you're off next week. You're taking off somewhere.
I'm gonna be up in a cabin. Uh, that originally on Airbnb it looked like suitably remote. Like it wasn't like literally like I got to go overland. And then I looked at the reverse view. I was like, oh, is that a golf course? So it looks at. I mean, it's above. If the view is right, it's above it. So you can. It's like a valley, and then there's a golf course, and there's like a beautiful mountain range. I'm just going there just to. So I'm not back here when I'm trying to write. Like I've got plenty of time to just come
Yeah,
back here and write. But when I'm back here, it's like
everything
infinite
happens.
distractions, infinite
Yeah.
distractions. Like, oh wait, what's that book over here? And then
And is this you're writing the reader's guide? Is that what you're writing?
it's the reader's guide. It's mostly it's very highly visual, but
Yeah.
I just need to dial in where there is some kind of text, but it's mostly like I'm channeling that medium is massage, like a little bit of like McLuhan graphic
Yeah, I love that. Oh,
book.
I seem to be a verb. Have you seen that one? Do you have that one?
Yeah, somewhere I've got that. Yeah.
Same illustrator as Massage, but written by Buckminster Fuller. I found a tattered copy in a box near my house, and it's one of my favorite books.
Yeah, maybe I don't have that. I've got so this one by the same guy, same illustrator,
Yeah.
is Today Tomorrow,
Hmm.
and this one which I'm not particularly into, but I just got it to kind of add to the collection. That particular illustrator.
And then there was that William Gibson collaboration book that you posted. I ended up buying that book, which is awesome, by the way.
Which book? Which book was that?
It's got like silver foil cover.
Oh yeah, it was yeah, I know the one you're talking about. But what's it called?
I'm trying to see if I can filter out books in what I've ordered on Amazon. Or I guess you just use the word book. It is.
Have you seen these books? These are like Star Trek episodes, but done as graphic novels. So
No,
like they
no.
literally
What?
they take they do the episode.
Okay, that's cool.
We got a bunch of these. I think I found them at a. It's just nuts. I mean, who does these kind of things?
That's awesome. I have a Viewmaster, which is an episode of Star Trek done in 3D Viewmaster.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, so I think the book that so the Extreme Self, which is great.
And then there's another one, right?
Yeah, the Age of Earthquakes, which I also bought on Amazon. And I found it for $1 it was a used copy. But yeah, it's called The Age of Earthquakes, is the one that they did in 2015. Both of those books are like visual in the similar sense as the medium
Thanks
of the
for
massage.
mentioning that. That's a good reference.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to. I'm trying to not assume that I know what I'm doing, so I'm trying to be like a little bit. But it's been great. It's been super fun just to try to tell a particular story that way. And but it started with that keynote that I gave at the AIGA, and I was like, oh, I think I mentioned this. It's like I started translating that into prose, like so if this were an essay instead of a visual slideshow. And then I was kind of like, what the fuck am I doing?
Yeah.
It's beautiful as like a visual. I mean, speaking humbly, it's like, you can get into it. You show people pictures and tell a story through that. And so I'm complete imbecilic novice at it. I was looking at some other, these things and then things that friends of mine had done. It's like, they know what they're doing. But I was like, fuck it. I'll give it a shot.
Yeah, exactly.
How hard can it be? And it's very hard, but you got to start somewhere.
That's great.
Boy.
All right. I'm going to
Okay.
bounce. I got websites to make. Go look in the Magazine from the Future nozzle. I posted a link to the little website I made this morning.
Wait, where's that?
Uh,
Oh, in the channel. Okay.
Discord, yeah.
Yeah.
Discord channel.
Sorry, tell me again, what was the other book that was in the Glimmery?
Oh, it's called The Age of Earthquakes.
I don't know if I feel like I've got that.
Same writers, Gibson and those two other guys. Same people.
Douglas Copeland.
Yeah, sorry, Douglas Copeland. Well, I don't know why I said Gibson.
Oh, The Age of Earthquakes. Yeah.
Yeah, Age of Earthquakes. That one. Yeah, and then there's that Buckminster Fuller book, which is pretty cool. What I liked about that one,
Which
though,
one was
is
that?
It's called I Seem to Be a Verb, I think is what it's called.
Okay.
I seem to be a verb. Yeah, I seem to be a verb. You can get it on Amazon for $942.
Oh, great. Cool. Got it.
Okay.
What's cool about that book is that you read it in one direction, and at the end of the book, you flip it upside down and you reread it because the whole bottom of the book is backwards.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's all just weird, cool visuals, and it's the Quentin Fiore Fuller is the illustrator.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
All
All
right,
right.
guys.
Have a fantastic weekend. Enjoy the time at the cabin.
Yeah, thank you. I will.
All right. Good luck job hunting.
Thanks, man. See you guys.
Cheers.
Yeah.